instead of combining all the empowering work into jobs and all the rote tedious work into jobs, we combine a mix into jobs so that each job is comparably empowering to the others. And we come to the assembly to manifest our preferences without this disparity between 20% and 80%, 20% having the inclinations and everything else and the 80% not. Instead, we all have comparably empowering work. What's the criticism? The criticism that will come is, God, you must be kidding. If you're a doctor under capitalism and you're working a 40-hour-a-week doctor and we switch to participatory economics, then Michael, what you were saying, somebody would say to me, is that he's only going to doctor for 20 hours, right? And 20 hours is going to clean bedpans and sweep or whatever, so he has a balanced job complex. And you've lost half of his doctoring capacity. And it might sound good, and it might be humane for everybody, right? But we've lost half our doctoring, and we're all going to die of diseases. And so it sucks. It's no good. What's the answer? The answer is that the person who says that is racist, sexist, and classist. And it's very important to understand that. Why? Because what the answer is that the 80%, it isn't just that the 20% doesn't do only empowering work, but does some rote tedious work. It's that the 80% now does some empowering work. And all we have to do is generate from the 80% the lost doctoring and other things and other jobs. So the question is, can the 80% generate that? And the person who says no is either confused or has some very bad views, I think. It's easy to see this. Suppose we were having this discussion 40 years ago. Right? So we're having a discussion 40 years ago. What's the gender makeup of the 20%? Anyone? It's all men. It's basically all men. There's a few women over there. Right? And in the 80%, all the women are. Is it the case that the reason why somebody is in the 80% is because they are genetically incapable of doing some empowering work? No. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with a social structure which debilitates the people in the 80%. So we can see the sexism that's associated with the logic. Classism is analogous. It's thinking that the reason why people who are in working class jobs are there is because the only thing they're capable of is obeying orders and doing rote tedious work. Right? But in fact, that's a product of a social structure and of a system and of education and of the division of labor. So we create balanced job complexes in our workplace. And now we have a workplace that has self-managed councils, equitable remuneration, and balanced job complexes. Pretty good. Suppose we keep markets. It all goes down the tubes. This is a more subtle point. Do I have a little time?
Yeah.
Good. Barreling along. And so if we keep markets, what do we have to do? With our glorious workplace that has these wonderful institutions, what do we have to do? We have to compete. If we don't compete, we go out of business. If we go out of business, we have great institutions and we're starving to death, which is not very good, right? It's not good to have a self-managed workers' council, equitable remuneration, and balanced job complexes, and be starving. So we have to compete. Competing means reducing costs. That's what it is. So we had in our workplace, with our workers' self-management, we had daycare, we had a reasonable pace of work, humane pace of work, we had cleaned up the air from the gases that were roaming around, we had air conditioning, and so on. But if we're going to cut costs, we have to cut all that. Right? The minute somebody else cuts it, we have to cut it. So in a market, competition compels you to cut back on those kinds of decisions. And so the question becomes, are we good at oppressing ourselves? Are we good at making a set of decisions that make our circumstances and our lives less fulfilling? And the answer, I think, is no. And what that implies is that we have to do something. We gotta cut costs. So we have to do something to be able to cut costs effectively. So what do? Well, we need some people who are well-schooled in being callous, right? In making decisions that hurt other people. So where do we go find those people? Last find somebody who called that America. Very astute. Some truth to that. But we can also find them in Scotland and in Britain and in Germany and all over the place. All we have to do is go to the business schools. If we go to the best business schools, we find the people who are trained to have developed a capacity to make decisions that hurt other people without feeling the slightest compunction. So we find two of them, right? We find these two who went to Oxford and developed these skills. And we bring them into our workplace. And we welcome them in to a balanced job complex. Does that make any sense? If we do that, we quickly undo their training. Now they would be subject to their own decisions. They would be subject to the pain of the cost cutting. And they would become no good in it either. So that's not what we do. We go get them, we hire them, and we put them in an air-conditioned office with a short work day, without speed up, and with air conditioning, and so on and so forth. And we inoculate them. We protect them from cost-cutting decisions. And then we say, screw us. Right? Cut the cost. And we say it because we need it. We need them to do it. What this shows is how an institution has implications for behavior, right? And those implications for behavior can subvert our desires. We can desire X, wind up with Y, because an institution compels Y. And in this particular case, we've done all these remarkable innovative changes. We've kept markets, and markets bring all the old crap back. Right? They bring back the division between the coordinator class, I want to call them, and the working class. They bring back the educational apparatus, which tracks us by stunting us, 80% of us, and propelling 20% of us. They bring back the unequal distribution of income. They bring back the authoritarian decision-making and everything else. Markets do it. So we can't have markets. We can't have central planning either. Because central planning has basically the same effect. Central planning, first of all, right off the bat, is authoritarian. It denies self-management. Self-management is each person has a say in each decision that affects them in proportion to the degree they're affected. You can't have a set of people who are basically responsible for decisions that affect everybody. So that's the first problem. It violates self-management right off the bat, no matter how humane it is. And you can have more and less humane central planning. But the second problem with central planning is that the central planners, part of the coordinator class, don't want to negotiate with our workers' council. They want somebody like them. They want in our firm people who get their legitimacy in the same way as they do, from having a monopoly on information and knowledge, from having degrees and all the rest of it. So central planning reintroduces the hierarchy too. If you look at the Soviet constitution, and you look at the Yugoslav constitution, centrally planned socialism and market socialism, you find that in both of them, they say that the workers in the workplace can do anything they damn well please. It's their institution. But in both institutions, the old corporate division of labor returns, the class division between coordinated class and working class, and the income distribution. Why? Because institutions compel it, regardless of the fact that people want something else. So we need a new allocation system. Participatory planning, it's called. That's the next component of participatory economics. I'm not going to describe it in detail. The essence of it is that workers and consumers' councils engage in a dynamic process, an exchange of information and preferences that in a cooperative way negotiates the plan. There's no center, there's no top, but there's a process that arrives at true social costs and benefits, at relative prices, relative valuations that really take into account the full social costs and benefits, unlike what happens with markets. So, the claim here is that participatory economics is classless. Got rid of capitalists, got rid of coordinated worker distinction, just have workers who do creative things and rote things, etc. It produces solidarity. Just as an example how it produces solidarity, we produce bicycles. Do we have an interest in producing as many as possible and having people buy them because they are tricked into thinking that it will improve their sex life? No. It does us no good. We don't earn our money that way. In a participatory economy, we earn money for duration, intensity, and effort, and onerousness. But if there's more to be produced, we'll just have more people producing. Nobody gets rich way. Nobody gets wealthy that way. And it's a waste. It's inefficient. It means that we're producing bicycles that lie in the back of garages and aren't used because people didn't want them to get around or to enjoy the right? So it's a waste, which diminishes everybody. Some productive output went to something useless. Do we want innovations? Yes. Would we prefer to have an innovation that makes a coal mine less onerous or a publishing house less onerous? Well, in the market economy, the people in the publishing house want the innovation of the publishing house. The people in the coal mine want the innovation in the coal mine. Right? Same thing in central planning. But in participatory economics, both want whatever innovation does the best job of improving the quality of life in work. Why? Because we all enjoy or do a balanced job complex, and it's socially balanced over all of society. So we all get ahead if the average gets better.